Oh, no. No.
Shh, 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 shh.
And there we are. And Nicole, I just messed up your name. I apologize. Let's see. I was working behind
Nicole,
the scenes.
what the hell?
Yeah, I know.
No, what happened to you? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm trying to read it backwards. So for some reason, because the capital, it makes me want to say,
Oh,
yeah, I kind of like it.
Naloxone.
Knee.
Colin.
Naloxone.
Sounds like
Nicole.
cardiologist. Why is it now? It's not one to fix. All right.
Naloxone. You sound like
prescription.
You sound like an antibiotic.
Yeah. Side effects.
It's naloxone. It's the latest in psychiatric care.
A long list of side effects.
All right. So if our viewers haven't figured out, you are watching The Eyes of Indigo. And we are starting off in our usual chaotic fashion.
Amen, sister.
It's
Far
live,
out.
folks, you know?
It's live. Not a lot of editing going on here. Hello. I am Margot. On the other end is Iris, and in the middle tonight is Nicole Depauw, our guest for tonight's show. We want to say thank you, hi, and welcome to our regulars as you sign in. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. We're glad you're here too. We also want to say hello to the people of the future that are listening to us in recording or watching us in video later on. We're glad you came back. Thank you. So, as Iris said, this is Eyes of Indigo, and you can catch us on 2 platforms, YouTube and Facebook. Iris, is Facebook behaving this week?
I have not looked, but I think it did. I think I got a heads up that it was working. So let me see. It says it is live. Yes.
So if you're watching us from either one of those platforms, please take a moment to type hello, hi, namaste, God bless you, WTF, whatever the hell that you want to type in there. Let us know that
you're so crazy.
And or prescribe medicine for us, obviously. This advice is always welcome. And we welcome your comments, your questions during our shows, and today included. Please type in the chat or in the comment section, depending on what platform you're using. And let's see, you can also catch us in audio recording on Spotify, iTunes, and their aggregate platforms as well. Iris, tonight's topic is?
We are doing Ashtanga, and that is not a dance. It's the 8 limbs of yoga, and Nicole Depauw is with us. She owns Om Sweet Om Yoga, and she's going to be discussing this very special kind of yoga. So, yeah.
Very cool. Hi, Jeannie. Hi, Dale.
Yes, our spiritual center with us. Look them up. They are awesome.
Or starspiritualcenter.com.
Yeah.
And the books. But anyway.
Yes.
Nicole.
I've got one. Yes, I still have one of mine sitting here. A minute. 1 second.
Where'd you go?
1 second. I got to show. See, I even have notes hanging out of it and everything.
There you go. Simply Shaman Mystery School by Dale Stacy. Absolutely. Highly recommend it. I read my copy and sent it on to someone else that was interested already. So it's in circulation among other medicine men and women. So there it goes. I might get it back someday. I don't know. It's okay. So yoga. I use Nicole's yoga studio for everything but yoga. We've been teaching.
But you're doing yoga. You just don't know it.
And our mutual friend Michelle pointed that out too. She said, actually, you're doing a different kind of yoga that's internal, mental, emotional, spiritual. Exactly. And that makes you a yogi in another way. But there you go. Head to knee backwards and bend. Got it?
Yeah.
Doing great.
Yeah.
He's tied up.
Wow.
He's tied up like a bowl of spaghetti.
That
Yeah.
was me this morning.
For sure.
Yeah.
For
By the
sure.
way I feel sometimes.
It is.
No,
It makes me feel better. This morning, I set aside an hour each week and work with a teacher who teaches me.
Yes.
So no matter how many years I've been doing this and guiding and, you know, what expertise people may consider I may have, it's nice to be guided as well. So this morning, that picture reminded me of,
What
I
you
actually
doing?
told my teacher, I said, but I don't feel like doing that. Self-discipline, I had to do it.
Refocus.
Yeah.
At yoga's studio, Nicole. That's good. At Nicole's yoga studio, she also leads sound healing of not leads, but she hosts sound healing events and meditation events and Ayurvedic dietary education workshops. David and I have taught Reiki classes there, and we have more workshops coming up. Check her out on Facebook. Yeah.
Some really neat workshops I'm super excited for too.
Thank you.
It'll be
Check her out on her yoga studio, and her Facebook name is Om Sweet Om Yoga.
OM.
Yoga and fitness studio, but Om Sweet Om. Yeah. Check it out. Thank you. So enough of the mutual sales pitch. Talk to us about Ashtanga.
Well, it was funny when you first said it's not a dance. Immediately I wanted to chime in and say, but it is.
But it is. Yeah.
It's a dance with life. It's a dance of ego and spirit. It's a dance of it all together. And it's a beautiful dance of the merging of human and soul and recognizing who's leading the dance at what times and a journey of self-study that is beyond anything I've ever imagined. So it is a dance. So you were correct. To me, it's a dance. It's a dance of life. You know, it's
I was thinking about like tango. I didn't want people to think it was just
it's pronounced Ashtanga.
Ashtanga.
Yeah. And many people confuse in our Western society, we hear of Ashtanga and we think of, for those who are familiar with the word, we think of this gymnastic type physical practice, which it can be. It can be. That part of the Ashtanga practice, we call Ashtanga Vinyasa, where it's only about 100 years old, that part where they have the physical series that goes along, you know, and then follows the 8 limbs of Ashtanga yoga. The actual Ashtanga yoga, 2,500 years ago is when it was put into format as here's the 8 limbs and here are the Yoga Sutras. And it was a wonderful, oh my gosh, I don't know what our yoga world would do without him, called Patanjali. He reminds me of when we were doing our Reiki sessions, when you were talking about Dakota, right? And
that's
how
what I was thinking. Yeah.
She made it tangible to us little people, if that makes sense.
Westerners. Yeah.
And
she westernized it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to say Patanjali's intention wasn't to westernize it, but to make it accessible to other castes, you know, where the lower castes, where you don't have to be of the Brahmin caste in India, the saints and sages and all of that.
Real quick, can you explain what the caste system is in the Hindu culture so our audience
can for that if I do it from my honest opinion?
No, just name what they are and the sequence they are.
We'll go from Brahmin, which is the godly caste.
Yeah, just name what they are.
And then it goes down. I don't really want to go through them all because it gets a little sketchy in there. And then down to what we've heard of the untouchables, which is very sad to me. They are
at the bottom,
considered to be born into a caste having to pay this karmic debt, which I don't. Okay. And their life on this earth is meant to be painful, and that's part of the Hindu religion that isn't necessarily yoga,
right?
And they're not given a chance at anything. I've experienced quite a bit of that when I was there, and it's hard to wrap your head around, and it's hard to see this beautiful practice that originated in India and Nepal, and then you see this caste system that is just
everywhere.
I mean, no, they don't. it gets really bad. They'll maim their children to give them a chance at survival because they can beg better with broken legs. I mean, they're not fit to be street cleaners. Yeah, it's really, and society does this to them, not necessarily their parents. But now we went way off topic already, but there's an orphanage where I visit that she collects the untouchable kids from the villages and teaches them their worth. It makes me want to cry thinking about it. It's called Ramana's Garden. And I've spent 3 or 4 Christmases with them. And it's really neat. These kids, some of them have graduated, college, and they're extremely polite, well-spoken, and they learn what their society won't allow them to learn. So there's changes happening. The young people, last time I was there, which was less than a year ago, I came home feeling very relieved that the youth of India is amazing. There is such change, and it was maybe 2 or 3 years since I went because of COVID, and what a difference I saw. The young people are righting some wrongs. Let's just say that. I work with animal rescue over there pretty heavily, and I've worked with the untouchable cast, with the children, and even with the litter and the pollution, and there's the changes. The times are changing in a good way, and they're holding on to the beauty of what is there and filtering out what's not necessary for survival of the whole. So it was just, I came home last.
They have more discernment. I'm hearing you describe. They're much more discerning.
I'm curious, how do they react to you as a foreigner coming in here and dealing with
Observing.
their untouchables?
Yeah.
Like, I could see where some people might, I mean, I don't know because this is the first I've heard of this, but I could see where some people go, who do you think you are? These people are where they're supposed to be, and you shouldn't be helping them.
I can't say as a whole for the country because that would be too broad. Where I go is a very holy place, and it's extremely welcomed, but the visitors and stuff, let's say that they check into a hotel and they want to know the last name of the people that were there before. And to make sure it's not of the untouchable cast. I don't know how they know that. And if it is, like, they won't go in that room. I spent a lot of time with a young man. He was 16 at the time, and that was 2 or 3 trips ago. And he was escaping that untouchable caste, and his family let him go from New Delhi. And he lived with this sage in Rishikesh, and was trying to, he clung on to me tightly to learn English because that raises his caste level and he can pretend. But he went to a school, and when they found out who he was, he had to paint the rooms of the school and clean it. They broke all of the dishes that he touched because they're unclean. Oh my God. Yeah. So, but on a positive note, that's shifting. It's shifting. Thanks to the positive part of like internet and social media, they're seeing something other than what their great grandparents knew. They're seeing a bigger picture. Yeah. They're seeing it from up above in the big picture. So on a positive note, I came home last time feeling so positive. I was like, these young people of India are outstanding young people, and look out for India because they're gonna move right up.
They need it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness!
Look out for India and Africa. Both
India and they're spectacular, and they love learning. They love speaking to you and sharing with you and inviting you to their homes and in their cars and to Kashmir. We went to Kashmir with these kids. It's like you think Kashmir, oh my God, it's scary, and from what I knew in the 90s and 80s, like you don't go there. Don't tell my dad. Hopefully he's not watching this because he doesn't know that. If he saw the map and I was right on the border of like Kashmir, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Tibet, and China, like right at the point.
Oh Lord.
It's like, I told my mom, don't show dad the map because like my hikes were bordering Pakistan. And so, but
it's amazing.
Amazing young people there. So it'll be very interesting to see the next 15 years with India. I love it. I love India. I feel at home there in some strange way.
Which means you're homesick right now, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
A little
Like
bit
it feels like it's been so long
intuitive.
and it hasn't even been a year.
You'll
And
go back.
it's so weird. I went the first time alone and everything about it's chaotic. It's dirty.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And then you're in these beautiful places with these people that have the depth that it's amazing. And it's this contrast. The contrast is amazing. It's a wonderful place for self-study. You will be tested in every way possible.
You will so love getting into the connecting consciousness community.
Oh, I love
that is where those people are in the West. In the West.
Okay.
Okay.
Nice.
You're going to find your people.
Yeah, like I love it.
To mention the connecting consciousness. If you're not familiar, go to simonparkes.org. Simon, SimonParkes, and he has an organization that you can join for free.
Spiritual organization. He specifies that.
There's no solicitation, no fees, nothing, and it's called Connecting Consciousness. And then they have,
and that's what he does.
Yeah, and
that's literally what he does.
Fantastic, and you can learn so much. So check that out if you haven't already. But yeah, we were telling Nicole about it before the show.
This has been a beautiful segue, ladies. Namaste.
Yes.
I love it when spirit pulls us in other beautiful directions.
No,
a lot of us do not have an inside view of what life is like in India. One of the beginning focal points for modern philosophy, mathematics, and science. I mean, Indian philosophers and mathematicians, along with the Arabs and the Chinese. That's all the same continent area. So thank you for bringing us a little bit of light about the rest of the world.
Yeah. So what Patanjali did is he took yoga and made it tangible and accessible to those not in the upper caste. So he took this humongous concept that's, oh my goodness, people they're born and they have their parents and they're given to a guru very young to teach them yoga, but that wasn't accessible to everybody. So Patanjali 2,500 years ago did I think it's 196 yoga sutras, and sutra simply means thread. So if you would imagine 196 threads being put together to create
sutures, medical sutures,
to create
threads,
something tangible and accessible to anybody who wanted to learn. With no,
can you explain what those threads are? Because then Margot started talking about sewing, and I'm getting confused.
I mean, it's the threads that would sew together the concept of yoga. And to give you an idea,
hypothetical threads, right? I mean,
well, there's 196
steps.
Yeah.
Positions.
Yeah. No. But see, that's what's interesting. The poses out of 196. I could spend a week talking to you about one of them, but I'm not going to.
Right.
What we call asana, which is the physical practice, is mentioned one time in the whole process, one time.
So and that's what the number of 196? What does that represent?
I guess he just felt like he was done.
No, she's saying.
What is it? I mean, 196
units.
trombones.
What are the units?
The units. Well, let's just say they're concepts. Let's say the first one would be it's so hard to describe.
They are teachings?
Theories. Yeah, it's
theories?
Let's say chapters in the book.
Okay.
Of yoga, if we could say that, where he must have felt after that 196, he had a complete concept put together in one unit.
Sure, whatever it takes.
Yeah. And the physical postures are mentioned one time. So that gives you an idea of the depth of yoga, and that's really why I'm so drawn to talk about it, because but most people don't understand the
Everybody goes and takes a
vastness.
yoga class and they bend and stretch, or
Yeah, and that's what we
hot
see.
or whatever. And
That's what shows up on photographs.
And and the beauty of it is that's what draws most people to the practice, because something hurts, or I need to become more flexible. Let me go to yoga. And then beautiful things start to happen from there if they pay attention. If they have an instructor that has the broader view of it. And
Right.
for me, a good instructor is going to give you a little bit of bits at a time and little breadcrumbs, if you will.
Mhm.
And you follow the breadcrumbs and you come to this moment of, oh, and it all starts to come together. And then you realize why you're on your mat. When I'm on my mat, it's a practice of life. I'm going through a whole series of self-study and self-realization, and how am I interacting with even the other people in the room. It becomes it in itself becomes my teacher, if that makes sense. Where is my ego leading? Why am I doing this? Why am I thinking this? Look at me, jealous of her pose. We're human. Let's say it. I do it all the time. And why am I doing this? Why am I not doing this? Can I tolerate? Is the mind what's stopping me before the body? It makes you look and ask. It's self-study. It's so much. And then we create, to me, yoga is a path of life without suffering. And I think it's very possible despite what's going on around you. So let's say, okay, I'm in this vessel, this body. How do I make this thing my friend? How do I make it an ally? How do I move comfortably within it? How can I shift this to serve the whole better? Because I'm within this and I got one on this lifetime. So what if I'm in pain and if I'm doing things that are causing my body harm? It's becomes a point of contention rather than an ally. So I want to make this body let's check that off the list of things that are going to cause me suffering as much as possible. And then throughout the practice, we start to learn, the qualities of the mind we can shift, where we can see discomfort differently. And it's no longer suffering, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Is it making any sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so
you're doing great.
Very broad, but yet so simple, if it makes sense. And I need to clarify, I'm speaking from my interpretation of this practice at this time in my life. And I've studied heavily over the past 8 to 10 years, and I feel like I went to the source to learn. So I feel pretty good about what I've learned. But again, life is this lifetime's ever changing, and we grow and we change. So I could watch this in 20 years and say, oh my gosh, she was so off. You know what I mean?
Right. Same way you think about yourself 20 years ago.
Exactly.
Right.
So I need to clarify, this is my interpretation of what I've learned at this time in my life.
Yeah, at this point.
Yeah. So
and I want to remind our audience, if they have questions, please ask.
Yes.
Yes. Do you want me to pull up this screen that I found that has sort of the definition and explanation of what the
8 limbs?
Yeah. All right. So let's just do that, and let me go over to that page. And this is on Yogapedia, and I thought that was really cool. The 8 limbs of yoga, what it does. And I don't want to take over from Nicole if you want to talk through this, or and you mentioned
Patanjali.
Patanjali. The 8 limbs outline a way to achieve and practice the balance, and they act as a guide for yoga to live a life of integrity, self-discipline, respect for nature, and the spiritual aspects of life. And so they've got these 8 limbs, or the 8 flower petals here. I thought I saw a cute drawing of an octopus by a child with the 8 limbs on it.
Oh, yeah. That's a great idea.
It explains them. Yama is 5 universal ethical and moral standards to live life by: nonviolence, truthfulness, non-stealing, continence, and non-covetousness. I don't, Niyama, is that right?
Is it Niyama or Niyama?
Because I put too much Southern in it.
That's a-
Niyama.
Is Nicole disconnected?
Oh, shoot.
She
Let me
may
go
have
back.
bounced out. Get her to come back.
Let me see. I'm looking for her. Wait a minute.
No worries. We'll get her back. Part of the intrigue and mystery of being live on the air.
Yeah. Okay. Well, she's not showing up yet. So let me go back over here.
She may-
5 spiritual and self-discipline observances: cleanliness, contentment, spiritual austerities, study of scriptures, and surrender to God. Asana is the physical yoga postures that help the body learn to focus and take care of the physical self, which is considered a temple of the spirit in yogic practice. Pranayama is the breathing exercises.
Yeah.
Pratyahara, sorry folks if I'm butchering this, control over the senses through the practice of transcending the external world or stimuli, bringing focus inward. Dharana is concentration or on inner awareness or on a single point. I think I hear Nicole. Wait a minute. Yes.
There she is.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. So we'll and I'm gonna have to hide Margot and bring her back so I put y'all in the right places. Okay. All right. So I'm just kind of going over what this thing says and butchering the names and all that stuff.
That's okay. I can correct.
Dhyana is the meditation or contemplation on the divine. And then samadhi.
Samadhi.
I knew it was going to be that as soon as I said it. Union with the divine through transcending the self. So it really talks a lot about what you were saying, Nicole, about all the, only one of these mentions the body poses. Often popular yoga that is practiced in classes for fitness or health does not incorporate the full 8 limbs, focusing primarily only on asana and pranayama.
Pranayama.
Pranayama. However, individuals can benefit greatly from learning and practicing the 8 limbs. And your doshas, that was interesting. To help you bring attention to your doshas and to identify what predominant dosha is, we created the following quiz. So I have no idea. What is a dosha?
The doshas are with Ayurveda, which is considered the yoga of food, if you will, and it's that gets into a whole that's an 8-year degree.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the doshas, that would be a whole different thing. That's what we had a seminar on it at the studio the other day, and it's fascinating, but she has her PhD, and I've studied it heavily, but it would take, let's leave that out of it for now.
Okay.
Because it goes that takes us somewhere totally else. So if we're going with the 8 limbs, what's very interesting is maybe 3 years ago, I hosted a 3-day yoga retreat, and I was planning on doing it on just the yamas, which is the first of the 8 limbs. And you saw how there were 5 sub contexts under the first limb.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I did a 3-day retreat on the first of the 5. So I did a 3-day retreat on 1/5 of 1/8 of the
what is out there.
So once I got, I really dove into it, and it's nonviolence. You would think, okay, don't kill people, check. I got that. Move to the next one. But when we look at the depths of it, it's fascinating, and it is like a dance with life, like, because Margot's doing a workshop on empathy at the studio soon, and it's discernment with nonviolence that includes to myself as well. So maybe I am doing something? Is it fear-based or is it spirit-based? Am I doing something for somebody because I'm kind of afraid not to, or I feel uncomfortable if they don't like me and all of this stuff? So where's my heart? What's leading this dance of nonviolence? Is that in turn creating violence on myself? If that makes sense. So
Yeah.
we can go very deep into enabling is an act of violence, if you will. So we can go deeply, deeply into it. I find empaths have a hard time with this one because I am one textbook empath, and sometimes I do stuff. It is an act of violence on myself because I'm absolutely exhausted. No, I don't have time, but this person really wants to, and I don't want their feelings to be hurt, and they'll be sad if I don't. And so my nonviolence on them is creating violence on myself. So that balance, and that's when you said it's not a dance. I was like,
It is, yeah.
It's
So I
this-
guess
That was a
how
good
do we
segue
dance
for you to talk about it.
beautifully within nonviolence. So nonviolence is the foundation of it all. So the rest of it, if it's not setting on the foundation of nonviolence, it's not yoga anymore. And you'll have a lot of people with a lot of different opinions about, let's say, being a vegan and all of this. I think it's intention. I think,
Right.
like when you were talking about Reiki, so much comes down to intention and exactly where you are in your life at that moment. And it's discernment and it's self-study. And that's another one of that. But it's self-study where you look so deeply within and you decide, what am I really doing? And it's so much getting to know yourself. You've seen that on my wall, and it's yoga is a journey of the self through the self to the self.
Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah. And to me, I translate that into yoga is a journey of the mind through the body to the soul. So we use our body as a vehicle to study the self and to get to learn.
Deeper.
Yeah. So all of this changes, like everything else. It's very fluid and changes upon self-realization. And that's why the last of the 8 limbs is samadhi, where you're completely free from illusion. Is that possible in human form? I don't know. At this moment, I am not there. I know that. And then you have to question, if I think I'm there, who's leading that dance? Do you know what I mean? Is it my ego that thinks I'm there because I should be, because I've done all this? And so it's fascinating.
So how does you mentioned the 196
Mm-hmm.
tenets or whatever you want to
Sutras,
call
yeah.
them.
Mm-hmm.
So how do they coordinate with these 8 limbs, or do they?
Yeah, they're brought up quite often throughout in a very deep format. Let's say the very first Yoga Sutra, and I'm going to say it in English because there's no point not, and it's simply translates to yoga begins now. And it's an entire series on that. And it means it begins now. It begins now. It's in this exact moment. And that kind of reflects back to contentment, contentment and meditation and staying in the moment. So they're all based on this. It just goes very much deeper into them. A lot of it is, they talk about the manifested self, and there's a whole bunch of the unmanifested and manifested, and the merging of what we call Shiva and Shakti, which is manifested and unmanifested coming together. So there's a whole bunch on the mind and what we call chitta, the mind stuff, all of the mind stuff. There's this little website called Chitheads that I like. It's so funny because it's chitta is the mind stuff, if you will. So it's an entire series on that. So it goes very deeply into all of these, but you can relate each one back to a sutra. Each one can come back to one of those. the 8 limbs puts it, like I was saying, nonviolence. Yeah. Upon first reading it, I'm like, okay, check. I'm not killing anything violently. And you would naturally move to the next, which would be truthfulness. Okay, seems pretty basic. But when we really dive deep,
being true to honest to yourself, it's hard. Yeah.
Yeah. What's interesting is all of them have to sit on the foundation of what we call ahimsa, which is nonviolence. So then there's discernment and truthfulness. Like, do I have to say, and I don't mean this, but I'll say, oh, Margot, your hair looks like crap. Like, is that necessary?
Even though
No.
and
it doesn't.
Even if it's your truth. Well, that's fine. But yeah, I get the example. And in the moment, if it's that truth, yeah, just because it's your truth, is it appropriate to say it?
No.
Right.
Have y'all ever seen the movie The Invention of Lying?
No.
It's
that sounds intriguing.
Ricky
Oh,
Gervais,
wait a minute.
and it's The Invention of Lying. And it's living in a world where everybody tells the truth.
Ah!
And then he figures, he comes up with a lie. And all of a sudden he's got a following like he's some divinity, And it is hysterical, just the crap
I need to
people
watch that.
tell each other in the truth.
He's an excellent dark comedian. Yeah, cool. The Invention
And
of
some
Lying.
of that, what I go back to is, the 3 gates, which are in Buddhism, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? It's pretty simple. If you can pass those 3 gates, go for it. But if not necessary. So again, it comes back to that self-study, which is, you learn so much about yourself that with the goal of absolute self-realization of your part of the whole, and how am I contributing to the whole, and letting go of the singular self quite a bit, and seeing that energetic self that's connected to all, and how me telling, I'm using as example, Margot, your hair looks bad. How is that affecting the whole, kind of thing? And I'm using that silly, stupid example, but it comes back to self-study. And is it true? Is it necessary? And is it kind?
Yeah.
Is it, is it, and if you can pass those 3, then generally, then satya, which is truthfulness, can come in. And then you get to asteya, which is non-stealing. Sounds pretty simple. Like, I'm not going to come to your house and steal your china. But what if I'm stealing your time that's not being freely given? By making you wait for me. Or am I taking something that's not being freely given? So that's what we consider stealing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then we get into brahmacharya, which is self-control, basically. It's mentioned a lot in a sexual manner, where a lot of the men, oh my goodness, the things they'll go through. In India, I'm seeing pictures of them hanging boulders from their,
oh wow,
to try to disconnect from it. You know what I mean? And yeah, it's kind of
almost literally. Yeah, but
hanging boulders from
their genitalia.
And to teach themselves to disconnect from that part of themselves if it's feeling overpowering. But
that is really hard when you're a young man.
It's
full of testosterone.
And is it possible, or I don't know.
That's a lot of biology to.
It's a lot of biology.
Aversion therapy.
Yeah. Aversion therapy. Yeah, it does sound like aversion
therapy.
Let's
even take like sexuality out of it, and that part
There's
of
other things. Yeah.
Like you break it down to self-control. Can I control my physical urges? And that could be any kind of addiction, which I think we all battle with, and on some level in our human form. I know I do.
Sugar.
Yeah. I mean, all of us.
We all fight that one. Yeah.
A lot of stuff. It's very interesting to study yourself. And then the next would be aparigraha, which is non-coveting, which would be needing to hoard and have more than you need. Simply put, like everything I like in the story, I think is pretty. Do I need to own it? Yeah. Or not? You know, do I have to have? We all know people like that. We may be one. I don't know. But, and none of this is necessarily judgmental. It's curiosity of study of the self and your intention to become cleaner.
Yeah.
In the process of that, a better part of the whole. And what am I doing? What am I thinking? It's fascinating to me. So yeah, so those are the yamas. The yamas and the papas. No.
Yoga for men, yamas and the papas.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then we get to the niyamas, this cleanliness, which keeps things tidy. Externally, to me, I like space. I like open space. I don't like having a lot of stuff. It's for me, in that space, I can move, I can breathe, I can find clarity, I can connect. When there's too much stimulation and stuff for me, and I can't, and Margot knows this well, I just physically can't do overstimulation at all. So to me, that's what I relate to with the non-coveting. I don't want it. It clutters me. And deciding need and not need. When my last few trips to India, I got really good at packing because I was allowed to bring 19 pounds for 6 weeks, you know, and I've done it with 14 pounds and didn't use all of it at this point. You know, it's, yeah. And then my last trip, I went skiing and my friend was like, your bag only weighs 29 pounds. And this is like ski jackets. And I'm like, but, and then you get home and I'm like, and I didn't wear it all. Some of it you want for in case you need it, but
sure,
it makes us look at that. Yeah. So
absolutely.
Anyway.
Oh, we lost her.
What did she click?
She may have touched something. While you're talking about that, and I was relating to what she was saying about what is non-covetousness, and she was talking about the materialism and dealing with the I want to have, must have, it is beautiful, I must buy it, or whatever. And, you know, which can lead to clutter, what she's talking about. But what I relate that to is our sense of lack. People tend to hoard and overspend. What's it called? Impulse buying.
Yeah.
At the checkout. Excuse me. Those are all tapping into our subliminal Western sense of lack. I must have. I must have.
You know, my sister, she moved from Tennessee to the West Coast, and in the process had to downsize significantly. And so after she downsized, and you know, she was liking her home. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you've got an echo and a delay.
All right, let me.
And Nicole
I don't know if that came back when. Wait a minute. Bring Margot back.
And Nicole's moving staccato too.
Okay. I'm not having an issue. I heard an echo, but that was when Nicole came back. So I don't know if you brought something back with you, Nicole.
She did. It started when Nicole came back. Nicole, jump out and
come back.
But it didn't because.
All right. I tried, and then it was echoing.
There you go.
Now it's
better.
There? No, but I got a less echo.
Yeah.
Now Nicole's on delay.
Because you're both echoing.
Yeah.
Let me jump out and come back on my. Go ahead. We're both going to jump off and come back, Iris.
Alrighty then.
Yeah, it's getting worse.
While we're waiting on them to come back, I will explain the story about my sister. So once she got downsized and kind of liked her house the way it was, there's a website called flylady.com, and it talks about tricks on making your housework easier and that sort of thing. And she, sorry, I'm multitasking here. And she, Margo is ready. I brought them back. There we go. And one of the phrases that she now, anytime she goes out shopping or buying something, she says, do I need it? Do I love it? And do I want to take care of it? And if the answer is no to any of those, she doesn't get it. So you might see something really beautiful and you really love it, but then it's like some tchotchke that you're going to have to dust and that sort of thing. It's like, no.
Yeah.
And it does make you think twice about that hoarding and that impulse buying. It stops you from the impulse buying. And I apply that a lot when I go places and kind of go, do I really, am I going to, or am I this would be great to do this project. Really, Iris, do you know how much stuff you've gotten rid of because you promised you're going to work on a project that you never get to?
I do that too. Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yeah. Things are better now.
There's times I'm like, it's a relief when I decide to not buy it because I'm like, phew, now I don't have to do that.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, the hoarding, and hoarding is a harsh word. It's fear-based, it's fear of not having enough, not being enough. Like, it's fear to me. And it's interesting to find, and I'm not saying people can't have things that bring them joy and they enjoy. I'm not saying you can't have anything and live in a cave with nothing. But again, it's that discernment and that it's that self-study. Why do I need this?
Right.
And it's that question, it's that pause and then asking the question to yourself, and you answer yourself honestly. And that begins the beauty of the unfolding of the whole practice of it's self-study. Yeah. And then the next one we get into Santosha, which is contentment, which is an amazing thing. Can we be content? And then when we're doing our physical practice and it really sucks. Like today, I did not want to do, oh my gosh, I did not want to do what I was being asked to do. It was going to be a lot of work and I wasn't mentally prepared. I didn't want to do it. And then the goal of the practice is, can I find contentment in this discomfort? And you have to ask yourself deeply, why don't I want to do it? Is it not good for me? Goes back to nonviolence. Does my body not need this today? Or am I being lazy? Or why do I not want to do this? So again, it all comes back to the self-realization. Yeah. So contentment is the second of the niyamas. And then tapas is the next one, which we go into self-discipline, which I think is kind of obvious after that, where we feed our body properly. We get up, we have a regiment to take care of ourselves. We take care of others. We do what's going to create this life of not suffering as we know it to be true at the time. So, yeah.
Good.
And then the next one is my favorite because it's self-study. And it's not an ego thing. I'm fascinating because this is crazy. It's some weird, woo, it's fascinating what goes on up here.
Oh, yeah.
Pause and pay attention. It's like, what?
It's a freaking circus going on in there. Yeah.
Totally. And the thought of it being left unattended is frightening. Where it's almost like pumping cable news into, like, when people have their homes all day long, it's being put into their brain, body, their mind, their spirit, and they're not even aware of it. And that's going on here, that self-talk, that rhetoric, that
And unsupervised. It gets out of
Unsupervised.
control.
This is not good. This is bad. And it's fascinating. And with and at risk of sounding goofy, it makes me love her even more because she's silly and she's a child and she's scared and she's insecure and then she's not and then she's strong.
Brave.
It makes me love her so much more.
It's more playful.
It's play. I love to play with her.
Genuine. Yeah, and it's genuine and it's authentic. Yeah.
Yes.
Unscripted.
Yes, I love, and it makes me smile at myself rather than be angry or stupid and this, and it's
derogatory. Right.
I love it. Like through this practice, I've grown to love her, and I call her so much, and I have compassion for her, and I see what's driving her to do certain things, and it's funny, and I bring her back, and it's like, come on now, like a little toddler sometimes. Is that a crazy sounding?
No.
Okay.
These are all normal conversations we have in our own heads.
Yeah, and it's so nice to like normalize it, and and this all happens on my mat when people think I'm just stretching. So this is yoga, and this is what I teach all day long, and I just hope I share it with others with the same beauty that I've received it from my teachers.
Let me ask you something. When you teach yoga, and this is going through your head, or what, are you instructing the people that are doing yoga about thinking about these aspects as you go through the motions?
Yeah. I mean, I try to balance not overwhelming it. You know, it's to me, like you feed them too much, you make them sick.
Yeah.
So there's certain poses that are going to challenge them in certain ways that, and I can only imagine that I'm not that different than anybody else. Whatever I'm feeling as I'm doing that and going through, I mean, human mind, we're not that different. You know, they're experiencing something similar. So I bring it up because they see me in some fancy pose doesn't mean anything. That is an advanced yoga practice is not the most challenging poses you've seen me in. It's, for me, my most advanced practice is, can I stay content? Can I stay present in a very simple pose that doesn't require my full attention?
So give me an example of what you would say, like if you're doing a certain pose with a class and you're saying, okay, we're going to do the downward dog, and while you're here, think about, I mean, what do you say?
Let's say down dog, because we do that so many times that it becomes very common. My mind leaves during it a lot, and I have them pedal out their feet, and I'm like, notice the right foot, the left foot. Like when you're pedaling it, like it's the very first time, like it's the most fascinating thing you've ever studied is how your backs of your legs feel and how they feel different from one another and which one needs a little more attention. And I try to talk them out of having the bad leg and the good leg. They're just legs. And this one needs this and this one needs this. And if you're thinking, and I tell them, if you're thinking about your grocery list later or figure out the whole rest of your life, you've lost your practice. You know, you've lost it. So we bring it to now, and I'll intentionally put them in a pose that's boring and see if they can find contentment there. And I'll ask them to notice things. Study it like you're writing your college dissertation on how your down dog feels at this moment. Like study it that deeply, because I tell them, like, when an animal wakes up and they stretch and they do this thing, they're not logging onto an app and following instructions. So I lead them sometimes to move their neck with their eyes closed as they see fit. Because it's boring. It's like, it's not exciting. You're waiting to get to the good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what if we find the good stuff in the small stuff? The boring. Find something extraordinary in the ordinary, and close your eyes. And I use myself. I don't put myself down in the class, but I make myself very human to where. And I tell them, at the beginning of class when I'm sitting there breathing, I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. I just sat there and kind of waited for it to be over. And then when I realized, it was like you're noticing how deep the breath's going. Is it going to the belly? How does it changing the quality of the mind? What's happening? Start to study that. And I have them move with their eyes closed at their own pace and try to connect and feel.
Interesting.
And if I can do that, I mean, it's easy to do in a complicated pose because you have no choice. It's like survival mode. But when you're just doing this, I could be doing my taxes while I'm doing that. But can I stay present in something very simple? And then learn from it and study it and become interested in it.
Very cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
I got to throw this last one up just for fun. Speaking of downward dog.
Oh goodness.
And the whole studio is doing the downward dog, and it's little animal balloons, and then the round balloon comes in.
He's not twisted yet. I love this because yoga can be intimidating to people. And I understand that. And I tried it. Like you all know, I'm goofy. I'm goofy. I am not perfect. Don't pretend to be. When somebody comes in, and I want them to feel very comfortable. And we do our best with accepting all bodies, because that's, and that's when it's like yoga begins now. The very first of the sutras. It's like right now, not when you're flexible enough, not when you lost 25 pounds, not when your knee feels better. I mean, physically, obviously, we're going to go back to nonviolence. We're not going to hurt our knee, but it begins now, as is, period. And I show up as is. And sometimes it's not so pretty, but it's life,
It is what it is.
It is.
You got to start somewhere.
Yeah. And every day I'm starting, really. Today I did a pose I haven't been able to do since I was probably 19, and it was fun. So no matter what, and that pose for somebody else is their down dog or their warrior two. It doesn't matter what it is. A sign of an advanced practice is not a fancy pose. It's being present in it and learning from it and growing and doing all of these 8 limbs. Well, not all of them, but I mean, within it.
Yeah.
So it's practicing the entirety of yoga while you're in whatever you're in. And that can be in line at the grocery store.
Yeah. That is so cool. I mean, I knew there was some modality, thought processes and stuff that went on with yoga, but I never really understood it. And actually, I have been to 1 or 2 yoga classes, and the times that I went, it was just going from one pose to the other and, chilling out to the music. And there wasn't a lot of discussion about anything, or it was just somebody doing an exercise program, basically.
Yeah. And there is that. And there's helpfulness in that. I don't want to down that, but
you could get a lot more out of it.
There's so much more. And maybe that's their gateway. Maybe it is, or maybe it isn't. And they're just making their body a more comfortable place to live within. And that's okay too. I try not to be judgy on it. And I try hard not to be like yoga snob, because it's, we all have our own ideas. of when people ask like, oh, what kind of yoga do you do? And I'm like, oh God, I don't, do they really want to know, or do they want, and sometimes I'll just say what I think they want to hear and let them walk away, because I really don't feel like getting into it. I was walking home my last trip to India. It was way up. It was like 14,000 feet and in the Himalayas in this jungle place. And I was walking home, and I talked to myself a lot. And I was thinking, how do I describe what just happened up there when someone says, oh, what kind of yoga do you do? So I'm imagining some idiot in a bar or something, And what I came up with was freedom. Yoga, if my practice is not based, like it's not giving me freedom, then it's not yoga. And it's like freedom in my body to move, freedom between each breath. There's space. There's freedom in my thoughts. There's freedom in to be wrong. There's freedom to be right. There's freedom. And that's what came to me. And I'm like, how do you describe that? Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it was
Nicole, our hour's coming to a close, but you have very thoroughly discussed and connected dots. And I mean,
you made it clear.
I really feel
you did
a
very
whole
well.
lot more in tune with what this is about. And thank you so much.
Sorry, Wensa. We have many more limbs left, but they require a lot. So hopefully I just touched a little bit more on the depth of the practice, and it's far beyond stretching.
I'd love to hear more about your adventures and your discoveries and your journey.
She hasn't even talked about what she did in China.
Oh Lord.
No, there's
3 years. A lot more to this girl than she's telling you.
I spent six solid years in Asia, 3 Taiwan, 3 China. I came home twice. But yeah, there's
she's a globetrotter. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's fun.
And some of her stories are very cute and charming.
Talk about some of those adventures.
You know what it is? And this will be, I know we're ending, I won't get into it, but doing that young, where I was 21 and got married and moved to rural Taiwan for 3 years and then came home for a year and got bored because I wanted to play some more, and then went to China for 3 years and rural, like no running water, electricity. And it gave me the courage to do what I'm doing now, like without any of that. And it to me, it's yoga. It's like, I crave to play with life a little bit. Like, let me put myself in a situation that's going to be very uncomfortable and see if I can find contentment.
Well, it's challenging yourself.
It's fun. And all kinds of people. It's so fun. And then you have to make sure it's not addictive. You know what I mean? So you have to keep checking yourself. And am I attached to non-attachment?
The irony. Yeah.
There's so much. I've often questioned, am I attached to non-attachment? I don't know. So, yeah. So I appreciate you giving me this time to share. And
please come back again in the future.
Yeah.
And share some more and tell us honestly. Yeah, I would love to hear even more about where you've been and studied and what it brought back, or what it brought you, and so on and so on. You just now gave us an overview. But I suspect there's even more.
Oh, yeah, there is.
And Dale and Jeannie say that they love Nicole and her perspectives and her honesty and humbleness. That's Jeannie. That's awesome. Yeah, thank you, Jeannie. And just to show what's coming up, and let me put the solo on. Next week, we're going to talk about the voices in your head, the self-talk.
Yep.
On March 15th, we're going to present the violet chakras. It's the 7th in a series of podcasts that we've been doing once a month. And then we'll do psychic readings March 22nd. And then on the 29th, we're going to talk about bread and circuses. If you're not familiar, look it up. But we're going to really get into that.
Blow
So,
blow the lids off of some subterfuge
yeah,
that's
yeah.
happening in the world. Yeah.
So again, thanks everybody for being here. Thank you, Nicole. It was great. We enjoyed
Thank
it.
you, Nicole.
Thank you.
You are a blessing.
All
Thank
right.
you.
You are too. Thank you.
Visit our Facebook
Thank you
page
for joining the Eyes of
broadcast
Indigo
details
with
at
Iris Carter and Margot Ross Sears.
www.facebook.com/Eyes
Music is
of
Arcadia
Indigo.
by Kevin
Show is
MacLeod of
copyrighted 2022 by
Incomptech.com,
Iris Carter and
licensed under
Margot Ross
Creative
Sears.
Commons.
All rights reserved.
Visit our Facebook page for broadcast details at www.facebook.com/Eyes of Indigo. Show is copyrighted 2022 by Iris Carter and Margot Ross Sears. All rights reserved.